Hi, I'm Dan. Welcome back to Vinyl Fury. So I haven't done a regular vinyl finds type of video in quite a bit, and I didn't really expect to, but I kind of found myself acquiring for me, a significant stack of new records to put in the collection this month. So here I am. It's also been a while since I did one of these videos with a microphone in front of my face, but it just so happens that I just finished recording and actually filming a couple of episodes of the podcast that I do with my sister called Siblings in Zion, and you can check that out. There'll be links and stuff. So I figured while everything was set up, camera, lighting, let's do this video. So I've visited several record stores recently, and for some reason, I had the inclination to buy some new vinyl, and I mean new vinyl, sealed vinyl. I'm still at this point sticking to the no new releases, new music on vinyl. Although there may be some that I acquire. I really do feel like typically going forward, that's going to be a general rule. We don't need to buy new music on vinyl. It really seems unnecessary. But there are some reissues here that I just felt like getting, and some music that I'm just getting into for the first time, even though some would argue I should have been into a long time ago. But let's start with this reissue of the soundtrack for Villainous Guy, which I have said many times in the past is one of my all-time favorite films. And it does have an excellent soundtrack curated by director Cameron Crowe. Music plays a large role in this film, and there's a bunch of great music on here. Radiohead, Jeff Buckley, Sigur Rós, Bob Dylan, R.E.M., Red House Painters. I really hadn't known or really heard Buckley or Sigur Rós or Red House Painters until I heard this soundtrack, and now I'm a huge fan of all of those. Music is just used so well in this film. So it's a great soundtrack, and I used to have the Classic Records version of this. It had a different cover, and it had a piece of film, an actual film with it, and it was 200 gram vinyl and all this. And it was great. It was a nice package. I enjoyed it. It was expensive. When I was honest with myself, it just didn't sound all that different to me, and it didn't particularly sound actually all that good to me. I really felt like there was moments where it just didn't sound like a record that I should have spent that much money for. Regardless of that, eventually it just became so valuable that I was able to sell it for several times what I paid for it, and it was worth doing that to me, even though I like it so much. I also knew, and this was several years ago, that pretty much everything is going to be reissued at some point. So I figured at some point there will be a reissue, and maybe I'll get it. So here we are. There's a label called Real Gone Music, and they reissued this version of it in 2018. So this version is an FYE exclusive of 500 copies on what they call vanilla yellow vinyl. And here is what is definitely just a yellow vinyl. I don't really understand what's vanilla about this, but there you go. So I recently found myself in an actual FYE store, which I hadn't been in years, and honestly, I thought they were gone. I really had no idea that was still a thing. Really, I was just in there to waste time on my way to something I had planned to do. And then I came across this, and it was something like $36, and I thought, well, here you go. Definitely overpriced, but it might be worth it, especially if it's a small run press. Sure, let's do it. Turns out I peeled back that $36 sticker off of this thing, And there was one underneath it that said like $56. I was like, well, I definitely wouldn't have done that. Good Lord. But it was kind of surprising that this was still around. This was released several years ago. And just recently, I mean, very, very recently, it was reissued by Real Gone Music on another color, another limited pressing, or two, I think. So anyway, I ended up with this limited to 500 exclusive copy. And I listened to it, and you know what? To me, my experience was that it sounded better than that original. You know, not mind-blowing. I think that's hard to do with soundtracks that are a collection of recording, different masters, all of this stuff compiled together to have it all sound great. It's probably a really hard thing to do. But I really wasn't disappointed with the sonic presentation. It's still too expensive, you know, it's a plain jacket, plain sleeves. I mean, there really is no reason it should be more than $30, but that's something that I've talked about plenty at this point. But there you go. Villainous Guy is back in the collection. So this is the first single from Mos Def. Came out in 1997. So the Universal Magnetic is side one. Side two is If You Can You Can Hear. Both sides have the original and instrumental versions. This came out on Raucous Records, who also released his debut album. And I'm not sure that I ever really... I'd had an MP3 of the Universal Magnetic, for sure. But I had never seen this before. And it was like $10, and it looked in decent shape. And I went for it, and I'm glad. It's great. It's great to have like that first presentation, especially side two. I enjoyed quite a bit. And at that time, I also saw a reissue of his debut album, Black on Both Sides, which I've had an original pressing of in the past, and I have sold mostly because, I mean, it just didn't, again, sonically, it just wasn't that much of an advantage to listen to it on vinyl. And I've looked at reissues before, and there's been a lot of bootlegs as well. And I saw it, and at the time that I found that, I was like, well, hold on. Do we really need to spend $30-something on this again? I don't know what it sounds like. I don't know if it's any better. And I was getting several other things at the time. I was like, well, I don't need to spend that much today, so we'll put that aside for now. And then I saw it at another store, and it was like a couple dollars cheaper, so I decided to go for it. So this is a reissue. And the reissue started, I think, in 2015. I've seen several copies of this now, so it's definitely been repressed recently. And thankfully, it sounded pretty good to me. The reservations that I had about that original pressing seem to be mostly not here. I mean, it's still not above and beyond. It's not significantly different or better, really, in any way, but it is good. And of course, this is just a phenomenal hip-hop record, one of the, in my opinion, the best of all. I enjoy it a great deal, and it was nice to get it on vinyl again. Yeah, I would say if you see this recent reissue, I could sign off on this one. That's the kind of album, I don't really know that is an audiophile version of it possible. If there was, I would like to have it. But it does definitely feel like an album that you want to have on vinyl. So this is a reissue that I did not expect to see. I was definitely intrigued by. So this is 10 Rapid by Mogwai, and it's a collection of rarities, odds and ends of the time, which was a long time ago, 1997. And I've definitely had this digitally for a long time. I don't think I've ever seen it on vinyl, but it was reissued a couple of years ago. And then apparently it was repressed because it had just arrived in the record store very recently From what I could tell, it was pressed on a National Album Day in 2019, but it is currently widely available. I even saw it on Target.com. It's on a dark green vinyl. Playing it, it's definitely not. The recordings are not audiophile to begin with. There was a lot of notes in reviews about this, about like clicks and noise and stuff like that. I didn't have that experience. I had some whooshing in some parts, but just the music, once again, there was no significant sonic improvement in listening to it on vinyl. It was nice to listen to these songs again. It had been some time. The price was right. It was $22, which seemed reasonable. I love Mogwai. And so yeah, it was worth a shot. Not necessary to have on vinyl, but low stakes gamble for me. And I don't think gamble is an inappropriate term to use when talking about new sealed vinyl. I mean, just in this stack alone, there's definitely a mixed bag of results for the money. So one artist that I, for whatever reason, have failed to really get into over the years, even though they've been influences and inspirations for artists that I really have gotten into, and a name that I've heard over and over again, an artist that has been revered for such a long time. I never really got into Elliott Smith. He spent a lot of time in Portland, Oregon, where I am currently, and I grew up in Oregon. And yeah, I've heard the music, but I never was pulled in like so many people seem to have been. But for whatever reason, recently, I just decided to step in and see what it's all about. And I ended up getting his first 3 albums on vinyl. So not the first one that I picked up, but his first record is Roman Candle. And I got this reissue from Kill Rock Stars. The artwork is a little, lackluster. It's pretty blurry and all that stuff. But the pressing is good. It sounded good. I really enjoyed listening to it. I listened to all of these on headphones. It's a pretty recent reissue. I've seen it consistently for $20. I think it's well worth that. Local record store Jackpot recently did a colored vinyl reissue of this and Either Or. And I was going to get both of them, but Either Or sold out before I think it even physically was in the stores. So I just decided to get the regular version. So yeah, it's just standard black vinyl. And the first one I actually picked up was the self-titled album that came after that. And this is a indie exclusive color. It's purple. It is a nice color. I didn't care so much about having it on a colored vinyl, but that was available. And again, I found this to sound really good sonically. Very real sounding. And one side was pressed a little bit off center that I could hear at times, so that wasn't perfect. And if I come across just a regular black version of this, I might get it and see if that's any better. But sonically, yeah, it was really good. And this may be my favorite of the albums that I've listened to fully, so far at least. So this I saw when I was buying Roman Candle. I actually took that up to the counter to check out, and the clerk had literally just put a price tag on it and set it down on this stack. And just as he set it down, I picked it up and looked at it and I'm like, wow, damn. And I actually already ordered the deluxe CD version of it, and I haven't even received it yet at this point. It's still in the mail. But at the time I was like, well, I've already ordered this on CD, so I won't get it. But then the next day I was out walking around and happened to be back in that same area, walked in, saw it was still there, and then I picked it up. But I also read that this pressing, for some reason, was not as good as the others. And I found that to be true. It's I can actually see on the vinyl where the patch where the noise was coming from. I don't know if a deep cleaning of any sort is going to change anything, but it's just like this elevated noise floor. Most of the time it's pretty quiet music, so that can get fairly apparent. So yeah, definitely the least impressive vinyl pressings of the three, but a great album nonetheless. And yeah, I was compelled to get it. And while I was, usually when I go to a record store, I'll go to the jazz section and I'll usually take a browse through Coltrane and Davis just to see if there's anything that I haven't seen in a while, or ever if there's used copies of records, because with those there's a lot of reissues and there's a variety of quality and source material and stuff like that. So I usually take a look just to see what's there. What I wasn't expecting to see in the record store was the recent Acoustic Sounds version of A Love Supreme. I had heard about it. I heard great things about it. I had heard the plates had even been used to create versions that ended up in Target and Walmart and stuff like that. I had heard it was a really great reissue of it, but it seemed like there was a lull in it being available. But then I went to the record store and there was a bunch of copies of it. And it was, expensive for a record, but for an Acoustic Sounds, all analog pressing, etc., it was within reason, I felt, and especially if it was as good as I had heard. So I did finally pick up a copy of this. I've had a copy of A Love Supreme that I picked up, at least 2014, maybe 2013. And it was okay. This is certainly better. So yeah, I believe it's made from a copy of the original tape made years ago that was in better shape than the actual original. It's cut very well, pressed at QRP. And a really good reissue of this. And I was glad to upgrade to a better version. Definitely a keeper, a lifetime keeper. And at the same time, I saw Giant Steps, which I don't know that I mentioned, but I did sell the version that I used to have, which was the Atlantic Master Series, 45 RPM, cut by Bernie Grundman, pressed at RTI, the best version out there, and it was really good. But again, it just becomes so valuable to somebody else that I sold it. But again, I knew that I would have a copy to replace it with at some point that I would be just fine with. So I saw this, and it had this sticker that said cut from the flat master. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, if there's a master tape that was used or what. That's a pretty general statement, but it was a reasonable price, and I'd been looking for a replacement copy for that, so I picked this up, and I thought it sounded good enough for me. It was a nice pressing. It was worth taking a shot on this, and I think it worked out just fine. Great album. I think it's a good pressing of this, and it should be still available now. And lastly, I just saw this in a Discount Jazz section. This is Keith Jarrett Staircase on ECM. I thought it looked great. I like Keith Jarrett, and I thought $3, no brainer. Double LP. The music is great, but unfortunately the vinyl sounds like it has some groove wear. Like there's some distortion that increases with the volume of music. Definitely not going to keep it, unfortunately, but I'll keep my eye out for another version of it that I will enjoy. And also, I just saw this. This is Inni by Siguros. It's a CD and DVD combo of a live performance. And I used to have this on vinyl, and I sold it. And I thought, did I sell it with the DVD? I couldn't remember. and this was significantly marked down as a CD set. I thought, well, I might as well just get this while I'm here, right? It's not that expensive. Turns out I did keep the DVD. And I don't even remember the last time I listened to this, so I really didn't need to buy this, but I was just in the mood, for whatever reason, to buy more music. So that's all. That's what I've acquired lately. I did see a vinyl tag going around the VC lately, and I thought, since, I'm probably not going to do this again anytime soon, that might be something I can do to engage with the vinyl community and put out another video. So I may pick that up here pretty soon. I know a bunch of people have already done it, but I liked the questions, and I was thinking about it, and I made some notes, and I'm going to do that next. But that is my recent vinyl finds to start out 2022. Definitely not going to do this very often. I'm already I definitely had mixed feelings about getting all of these, and my experience with how good or not the experience was listening to them versus the price and all that stuff. So, it's still a bit conflicting, but I just felt like doing it. All right. So thanks for watching. Hope you're having a happy new year. And until next time, enjoy your music.